Hey, what's up, guys? It's Will back once again for another fight card prediction here for UFC Vegas 74, Kai Kara France against Amir Albazi as our main event here after a nice little week off. No fights, not unless you're watching the road to the UFC, but that wasn't for me. I was just using the time to really enjoy the family time and look into some of these fights here. And overall, I think we've got a pretty decent card, a lot of kind of closely run matchups on the betting lines. There is a couple of spots I like. I've got a bet that I've got already. Might have another couple more. But overall, I quite like the card and I like the main event. I think I've heard some people say Albazi maybe this a little bit too soon for him with the kind of caliber of opposition that he's faced already. And I think this is the perfect fight for him, honestly, to be up in there. I think that he has fought the kind of lower caliber of that division at 125, but I think this is the step up he needs, honestly. So looking forward to talking about that. Let's get into the bottom of the card and see where we're at here. We're at in the 205-pound light heavyweight division. We've got the 32-9-2 Maxime Grishin against 16-5 Felipe Lins, who's really started to turn it around in his previous couple of fights here and really looked like he's a UFC kind of caliber fighter. And that's something that it's been kind of a slow burning thing, but I thought when he went to UFC that he would have kind of success from the get-go being up at heavyweight. But then I was kind of thinking about it as well. He came from the PFL where he won the big $1 million, so maybe the motivation wasn't quickly there. And he's kind of shown a little bit of the older self with the move down to 205, with wins over Marcin Prachnio, very kind of low-level wins, I must say, and the kind of ghost of OSP, where you've got Grishin here, who's kind of been trading wins and losses, been pulling out of fights with Almeida, which I think is a smart thing, honestly. Took the loss to Marcin Tybura, I think it was a heavyweight, beat Antigulov, lost to Jacoby. I'm not overly high on Jacoby, and then beat William Knight, who obviously nowadays just doesn't really even fight by this. Looks like he just kind of sits against the cage and kind of gets caught with shots. So the way I kind of see this going is, I still don't think Lins has got the greatest gas tank. I do think he's dangerous with his striking, especially early on in the fight. And I do think that he has a ground game if he gets it there. I am just not a fan of his gas tank, in all honesty. And on the Prachnio side, the Grishin side, I should say, he's a little bit more of a kind of cerebral, methodical fighter, picks his shots, doesn't kind of outdo himself, kind of paces himself in the fight, is pretty solid everywhere, but is beatable. A guy with a ton of experience, like I mentioned before. And for me in this matchup, I'd be interested to see if Lins could get the fight to the ground and see what he could do down there. But I just don't think he's one for really taking the fights down there. I think he will predominantly look to try and hurt Grisham and kind of take him out via strikes. I'm just kind of not on the side of that happening. I'm more on the Grisham side of him being out there in Vegas. I think with Sean Strickland and the crew out there really working hard in the gym. And he's just a hard, tough fighter to really look good against, to get out of there, first of all. And I think if this kind of goes past that 5-minute mark of the first round, moving into rounds 2 and 3, I think I'll lean more on the kind of Grishin side. I just think he's a little bit more solid over a 15-minute minute fight. So for me, the prediction is going to be Marcin Prachnio via decision there. This is a great fight. Luana Lacerda against Blackshear. This is one I was looking into last week. I'm a guy that really likes to keep an eye on fighters outside of the UFC, and that's why kind of every year I make a video of people that I think the UFC should be looking at to bring in, and I made one this year where there's, I think, 3 of the top 10s already there, which I'm pretty happy with, and there's a list below there of people that I think to keep an eye on for the next few years, and a few of them's on the Contender Series. So, and Lacerda's a guy I like, especially with the Brazilian scene. I don't keep up with as much nowadays, just with I kind of rein myself back from what I used to do. I used to literally watch fights from all over the world and keep eyes on kind of all the spots in the world, different territories, whatever. And Lacerda was a guy that kind of popped up 3-4 years ago for me. a black belt under Andre Pederneiras, who didn't really have the striking acumen to really back up his ground game. But what I do like is I think he has made improvements from the fights I watched a couple of years back, and his aggressiveness. He used to be a little bit more placid. He used to sit back, let the fight kind of come to him. Now he's a fighter who comes forward, brings the fight to you, is not scared to trade, and is a devil once he's on the ground. Once he gets, like I said, an Andre Pederneiras black belt, Nova União, comes from a really good, solid camp. I think Pederneiras is under the Carson Gracie lineage, so a really good, solid black belt. And you saw that with the opposition that he got in his UFC debut against Cody Stamann. I thought he gave him a really good account of himself with a guy who's probably a top 20 guy in that division, fought people in the top 10, top 15 in the rankings. I thought he gave a good account of himself. And I've also been super impressed in Damon Blackshear, even though, I mean, he's kind of coming off a draw in 2 L's. He was losing that fight definitively, winning that fight definitively, and then lost the third round 10-8, went to a majority draw, and kind of slipped up a little bit there. And then the Basharat one, I still think that's not the worst loss in the world. For me, Javid and Farid, I've got a bit of a higher ceiling for Farid Basharat, even though Javid is really, really good. But that's just my personal opinion on that. I think that Farid might just go a little bit further. But this is a great fight. A big athletic guy in well, not a big guy, but an athletic dude in Damon Blackshear, very explosive early, and can mix it up well. Really, really good on the feet, and predominantly looks to take the fights to the ground. I just don't think that's smart if he does that here. I've seen that he's kind of got himself out of Albuquerque. He was usually a kind of stablemate of the Jackson Wink crew down there, and that camp has really just evaporated into nothing nowadays. It used to be the go-to camp, but it's nothing nowadays to what it once was. And I think from what I'm hearing, he's been roaming around Florida, going to different kind of smaller gyms for the last 6 weeks or so. So I'm interested to see kind of what he does here, because I think he's got a speed advantage, maybe a power advantage as well. But I think that Lacerda is very, very game, and I think if he gets to the ground, especially if he can get into positions where he can get on the back, or he could get into like a control position, I absolutely think that he can submit this guy, especially late on. I was going to bet actually Luana Lacerda. I thought, right, but I'm not going to bet 10 days out. I'll see. I'll let the kind of lines marinate, and I thought they might come down a little bit, because I did have some people message me about Damon Blackshear. And Lacerda was minus 125. I can still get minus 130, so it's not a big jump. And he is someone I am looking at a bit. I really like what I see from him. I think this is a favourable matchup, but I can see why people would maybe err on the side of Damon Blackshear, because there's a lot to like with the guy. But for me, I'm going to take Luana Lacerda. I'm actually going to take him via submission. What's happened here? God dang. I apologise, guys. Unsafe. That's a new one. Okay. So yeah, that was a weird one. I don't know where that came from. So moving on. Genu Frey against Elise Reed. Now, last week before I really looked into this, and I didn't, if I'm being honest with you, there's some fights nowadays I don't really want to spend time looking into fights, and this was one. But I had a bit of time through the day. I was a little bit bored. Was really only going to watch maybe a fight of each of these and kind of go off past memories, and then kind of went down a rabbit hole a little bit of watching a little bit too much of this. I was on the Reed side initially, and then I thought, I think this is the wrong side. I think there's more path to victory for like a Genu Frey. Now, I don't like the fact that she is particularly older for the just in general, and the fact that she's what, 37, 38, and probably at a weight class that it is an optimal weight class in the UFC, but she's probably not a 115, she's a 105 at heart. So, but I do think she's got a different path to victory. I think she can have, if she avoids the power shots of an Elise Reed and doesn't let her get any kind of momentum, then for me, I think Genu Frey can absolutely get takedowns in this fight here. And I think at least read a takedown defense is not good. I think a striking, like I say, if she gets her confidence together, is pretty decent, and she can hurt girls as well. And we have seen Jinh Frey knocked out recently 6 months ago, lost that split to Vanessa Demopoulos, which was a very kind of close fight between them. I think if she avoids getting hit here and kind of fights at range, picks her apart, mixes in takedowns, gets some control on the ground, I think she's the favourite. I think these lines should be flipped. You've got plus 110, minus 135. I think that should be flipped, in all honesty. So I'm going to pick Jinh Frey to win via decision, maybe even a submission if she can maybe get round to the back. But for me, I am going to pick Jinh Frey for the win there. Daniel Willycat Santos against Johnny Munoz Jr. I was on this guy last time out, Willycat, when he was an underdog against John Castaneda, and that was just a barn burner of a fight. Really, really solid guy. Just comes for your throat straight off the bat. I think he's very well versed in all facets of the game, but he is super aggressive and might walk onto some certain shots. But for me here, I just think that I don't think there's an awful lot of big threats here from Munoz Jr. I think he has to get the fight to the ground. I think he will look for submissions. That's, I think, his biggest strength in this fight. But I think Willycat could probably get taken down, but I can see him popping back to his feet. And I think once on his feet, I like his variation of the shots that he has. I do think he's got a submission game, which I'm not writing him off if the fight hits the mat. I think that I saw a video on Instagram or somewhere where he's like he looks really, really solid and is tapping some guys in his gym. But like I say, it is them rolling it and not probably going super serious. But still, nonetheless, I think that it's a guy that he can win via knockout. I think he can win via submission. And I do think if his gas tank keeps up, a decision is there. But for me, I am kind of looking at him as a... Like I said, I like parlays. I usually kind of look to try and get some parlays off. Minus 200, I think's okay. Honestly, I think that I could put him in a parlay. But I just kind of have to mind my P's and Q's with that because, like I say, he might kind of gas himself out and maybe give Munoz Jr. the opportunity to get takedowns and might be underneath him for a little bit. But for a pick, I'm going to go with Willycat to win via knockout in the middle part of this fight here. Andre Arlovski against Don'Tale Mayes. I cannot believe Andre's still fighting. Jeez, well, it feels like I've been watching this guy for a lifetime. How old is he? 44? 45? 44, not long ago. And still going strong. Jesus, he's coming into 60 fights and 50. This is fight number 56, 34, 21 records. And then you've got Don'Tale Mayes, who I think has got a lot of things that you would like. I just don't think he uses them very well. I think he's a very low caliber UFC heavyweight with his wins over Josh Parisian and Rocky Martinez, which I thought he was a little bit lucky to win, in all honesty. And I trusted him in this fight here, which was just a bad thing from the get-go. And he lost to Sakai there a couple of months back, where I think I was on Sakai. I think that was dog money. I think that Arlovski's just going to do more over a 50-minute part of this fight, but he hasn't, like that fight there. I think you can get him if you're super aggressive and really go after him. I just don't know whether Don'Tale Mayes has really got that. So I'm going to pick Andre Arlovski via decision. Where are we at? This is a great fight. This is a fight I'm looking forward to. John Castaneda against Munoz Gafurov. And this is a bet that I have, which I made this morning, very early this morning, because I thought, right, I need to get that line because I think it's going to be the optimum line that I'm going to get here in the UK. And it seems to be that the line on Gafurov is moving towards him, maybe moving into a favourite position. It might come back a little bit. You might get some pullback and pushback on John Castaneda here. But for me, I've bet Munoz Gafurov plus 122 units for me. Love this spot. I know he's coming in short notice. I know that, and I've already seen it. I've already spoke to people about it. But this guy lost to Chad and Hellinger. Yeah, I'm not going to sit here and say that's not something that's great on your record. And like I say, considering he was a minus 500 favourite, gassed himself out, really just threw everything at him and really couldn't get him out of there, and was kind of made to pay for it, but still probably had an opportunity to win that fight. And didn't look in the greatest shape, if I'm being honest with you. I think there was something that happened that week. I can't exactly remember what it was, but I don't know if it was illness or just a bad weight cut or something. But I do remember, I think I took a hit on him. I think I actually lost a bet on him. I had him as a parlay piece, and he got, like I say, he just didn't look himself. I remember looking into that and thinking, oh, I'm not as confident as I once was. But since then, I thought he's looked great. He looks in great shape. He looks like his cardio was always something I was a little bit iffy with, especially when you see that Contender Series fight against Hillinger, where he really gassed out. But you seen him go hard in the third round there with Herbert Souza. I think it was one of these fights. I can never remember now. They all kind of mold into one. But in this fight here, it's kind of grappling exchanges. He does kind of momentarily get taken down, then he will find a way to get onto the back, reverse sweep a little bit. Then once he gets these feet, you will notice he's got some massive power, one punch power that can put you down. And the accumulation of the strikes, if he gets you down once, he's got an opportunity to get you down again, and that's what he did there. And then in this one here, he showed his grappling, and then he spams the back kick, which is never great, but when it lands, it looks amazing. And that's what happened there. He landed a spinning back kick to the body, folded the guy, and was done. And these are two reputable wins with guys with decent records as well. Castaneda is a guy I have faded in the UFC on a couple of occasions. Let's say Willie Cat Santos, Nathaniel Wood. I was on both of those there. I might have been on him for the Eddie Wineland fight in some spot, but he's been out in Thailand at Bang Tao Muay Thai, I think it is there. That used to be Tiger Muay Thai. So he's been out there, but he has a very kind of low, I don't want to say low level, what's the word I'm looking for? He doesn't have a massive striking output, very kind of low volume. That's what I was probably waiting to say. He's a guy that doesn't really push himself when it comes to strikes, going all out to get some, where you've got Gafurov here who can come in and wrestle. I think he can wrestle this guy. I think he can strike, but I think he will bull rush forward to use those strikes to get takedowns and really try and win the fight through that. Now, Gafurov, I did say he was coming in a week short notice, but he's not been sitting on the couch. He's been in camps with UFC champions, UFC contenders, main event fighters. He was there. He was helping Marab out quite a bit from what I've seen for his fight against Peter Yan. He's been around Aljamain Sterling doing bits and pieces there, I believe. So he's been ready to fight. He's been in shape. He's been ready to go. And I think he looks in the best spot of his career here. Great record, faced some good guys in the past. I mean, that fight there, he took a round off John Lineker, went to war with John Lineker and just was outgunned a little bit in that one. I like him here. I think he's got an opportunity of an early knockout, honestly. I think the power that he's got, I think he can put this guy down. And I can also think he can win the decision through his grappling. So when I heard he was jumping in short notice here, I was like, please give me a plus money line, because I am on that. And like I say, plus 120, I'm on that to the nth degree there. And I think that a few of the sharper people out there I know that are going to join me, and hopefully we can cash that ticket together there. But that's the type of, and also I should say as well that when I make like prospects the UFC should sign, Gafurov was one of the ones that was in my list there, the top 10 for this year. So like I say, if I rate people pretty highly on there, I need to take the opportunity to bet them at underdog odds there. I will do that. Another interesting fight here. Elliott, Zaleski, Dos Santos against Abubakar Nurmagomedov. I've been kind of shifting back and forward with this one. Elliott's coming back off their PED suspension. Abubakar's coming back after a couple of wins there over Jared Gooden, Omar Gadziev. And we kind of, the more explosive striker here is Zaleski. Capoeira, he's got some spins, he's got some big strikes, big power. But, I mean, he's not a young guy anymore. He's in his mid-30s, been around the UFC for a long time, but is super dangerous in many aspects. We've seen him submit guys. We've seen him knock them out. We've seen him go a hard 15 and win fights through that. But for me, like I say, I think I'm on the Nurmagomedov side to edge it, but honestly, I've got no real confidence. If I'm being honest with you, I'd prefer probably a Zaleski to Santos win because Abubakar is not a super fan-friendly fighter. He doesn't look great in his fights, but he is super effective and knows how to win fights. So for me, I'm going to lean Nurmagomedov here, but not enough to really lay money down. Like I say, there's a few fights this week that are like even fights, -110, and it's just picking sides. And if you look at my record throughout the years, when I bet on these type of fights, I don't do well against them whatsoever. So I'll lean on the Nurmagomedov side. Like I say, not a hell of a lot of confidence, and I won't be putting down my money on it either. So Jamie Malarkey against Muhammad John Naimov. I think this is I don't want to say a smash spot. I think it's just a very solid spot for Jamie Malarkey to get a win here. I was actually, and this is probably more on my dislike, not real dislike, but I just Guram Kutateladze was supposed to fight in this one. He's a guy that always has visa problems, injury problems, whereas, and I came into this one thinking, yeah, I actually think Jim Mullarkey is like live plus 300. But then I sat back and I was like, he probably isn't because Guram, to his credit, is a little bit of a solid fighter in many aspects, fight hard, can go against probably guys a little bit better than Jimmy Mullarkey. And I'm a little bit of a sucker for actually betting Jimmy Mullarkey. His introduction to the UFC was something that really I still watch to this day. Every time that he has a fight, I watched that Brad Riddell fight. Great scrap. Loved that. And like I said, it's one of the fights I watched quite a bit. Just two guys slugging it out. Like I said, I tried to bet him against Jalen Turner. That didn't turn out so well. Bet him last time out against Francisco Prado, but he was a young guy that's, like I say, I still think it's super early for him to be in the UFC. Jamie Mullarkey's solid. Like, he's super solid. This guy didn't look good against Colin Anglin. I thought, I know who this guy is. But like I say, you're going back nearly 3 years. And since then, he has made some improvements, but it is against guys with not great records. But like I say, he's getting his opportunity here. Can kick pretty well, but I think overall as a fight, I think Jamie Mullarkey is just a better fighter. I think he wins here. So Jamie Mullarkey, I think he's -500. I want no part of that. Karini Silva against Caitlin Souza. Don't like the line in Karini Silva, but I think she covers here. I think she wins the fight more often than not. Both girls super aggressive. I might look into the -2.5 rounds here because I think both girls are like very dangerous in a lot of aspects here, and I think they might go at one another and could hurt one another. I mean, you look at Souza here. Our last couple of fights in Invicta have went into decisions here, but I think both girls are like super explosive. I think this girl on the ground is really good as well. She's coming off the wins there, the Contender Series against Kyuhee Yan, and then you've got that one against Battaglia there where she got the draw stroke. So ultimately she's probably looking to get the fight to the ground here, which I think she can. Souza I have seen being taken down, but I also have seen her pop back to her feet fairly soon after getting takedowns as well. Like I said, I don't like the -225. I think if you were again there when she was in the -180s, you might have had a chance there. I know there's a couple of people that jumped on that. But this is one of the fights I wasn't really looking to jump into too much because I knew I wasn't really probably going to bet it. But then when I did look into it a wee bit, I was like, I might actually like the 2.5 depending on what the number is. So that's the kind of the way I'm looking at this fight. I'll wait a little bit further on the week. But I think I'm going to take Karini Silva via submission in the second round there. I think this might be the people's main event of the week here. Flyweight division, Tim Elliott against Victor Altamirano. I'm not really going to get into the outside stuff with what's been going on with Tim Elliott. You can go look up yourself. But I am really hoping that he pulls through here and gets a victory just because all that stuff is just wrong. Like in best friends and wives and stuff happening, it's just rough. So, but as a fighter, he's a guy I've liked watching fight for a long time, and I've cashed some really good bets on him, especially the last time out here. Plus 215 against Tajir Ulanbekov. Really, I thought showed some really good hands in that fight there, and he's shown that he can hurt people, put down Tajir in that one. but he's like you say, he's a very awkward guy to face. He's forever moving. He's hard to kind of pin down. I think he can catch you with some submissions, some weird. He can put you in some weird spots. And Victor, like I say, I think he's a pretty decent striker overall. I think I cashed him as an underdog last time out against Salvador. I actually think the last 2 times I've bet on him actually. And actually quite like him in the UFC. I think he's a good addition to the flyweight division. To me, I just think when I look at this one here, I just think this guy's faced the who's who of these divisions, like Royval, even Espinoza, Mateus Nicolau. He's fought top 10 guys, gave him a run for our money, been competitive. Tajia's probably right outside that top 10. And I thought that line was silly. I think the line was the way it was because it's Tajir Ulumbekov and who he's associated with. But yeah, I think that he's awkward on the feet. I think he can grapple a little bit here. But I also have seen Victor get takedown but pop back up. And like I say, he's kind of got a little bit of an awkward style himself, a really good kicker, hard kicker. For me, I'm leaning on the Tim Elliott side. I'm cheering for him this week. But like I say, that line, I don't like betting Tim Elliott at that line. Like minus 175, I think it could be a little bit too close for my liking to really put my money down in that. But I'm hoping he wins in that one there and gets it done. So Tim Elliott is my pick for that one there. Jim Elliott against Jared Gordon here. I don't know where to go in this fight. For me, I think, honestly, for me, if there was this whole thing a month ago with Jared Gordon where he pretty much got knocked out a month ago due to a headbutt, and I thought, right, it's something. I thought he would have been suspended definitely with what was happening, and then I saw he had the fight there, and I was like, well, they must have passed him. Everything must be okay. And then I watched an interview today, and I'm like, yeah, he had signs of concussion. I'm like, why is this guy fighting like a month later? That is not like safety for the fighters. And how is he getting this fight with him saying stuff like that if they're not seeing stuff? So honestly, I don't know. For me, I think it's pretty black and white. I think that the legend in Jim Miller, I think he is going to be super dangerous early on. Maybe for the first 2 rounds. I think that if Jared really doesn't get hit with anything, doesn't get flushed with anything in that first round, I think that he could potentially move on to rounds 2 and 3 and look to kind of assert his dominance there, maybe put him against the cage, just use his strength, take him down. I'm interested to kind of find out if he's been in the gym, if he's had concussion symptoms, like what's he been doing? Has he been sparring? Has he been taking shots? And honestly, I've not been super impressed. Now, he took this L against Paddy, which we'll probably recognise that he won that fight, win over Leonardo Santos. But like I say, that scared me when I watched that interview saying that he had concussion symptoms and all that. And recently, when you've been watching these fights, I think he's looked really slow. I think he's looked lethargic in some spots. Honestly, I'm going to pick Jim Miller. I know he's coming out like in this little run here. He was beating lower caliber opposition. Your Eric Gonzalez, Nicholas Mo actually thinks pretty solid, a good fighter. Beat the Ghost of the Cowboy and then lost to Alexander Hernandez. And I thought he gave Hernandez, even though he looked behind in the fight, he gave him a tough out. He gave him a good knock, and really, just like you say, he's a hard guy to get out of there. So I think this fight, he could be live across 3 rounds. He will fade off naturally, but I think he can make a fast start, win the first round. I think he could get some spots where he could hurt Jared Gordon. So I'm going to lean on the Jim Miller side. For me, it's like that number's wild. I don't think it's that high here in the UK, but that is wild. So I'm going to take Jim Miller. Will I take an underdog shot? This is one of the things I was saying. Like if I'm picking like plus 200 underdogs, I should really be betting them. But we'll see what they're like at weigh-ins. But the whole story of this Jared Gordon, concussion symptoms, how's he fighting? I have no idea. But hey, I don't make the rules. I just watch fights and watch them in. So co-main event. Alex Bruce Leroy Caceres against Daniel the Pit Pineda. This guy is a bit of a demon, honestly. And this is another fight I kind of think is a little bit dog or pass. I don't really like betting Alex Caceres at like that number there. I like him at dog odds. I think was he not a dog to like Chase Hooper? at one point, and that was wild. I remember that. That was one of the easiest. Chase Hooper's like one of these people that when there's plus money on either side, you kind of go with him. Like he was plus money against Nick Fiore, Alex was against him. It's a wild thing with kind of Chase Hooper fights. But Daniel Pineda, I mean, this guy's a finisher. Like a finisher. It's 28-14. That you got the wins there. Like you've got 2 fights here. You've got Moved Kaspalayev and Jeremy Kennedy, where he actually wins those fights, but then he pops for PEDs, which Daniel Pineda is kind of known for being honest with you. So say if you add that there, he has 30 wins all via stoppage. That's pretty crazy, by the way. That is wild. So he is initially going to be super, super dangerous in many facets with his striking and predominantly with his grappling as well. He's a good submission grappler. But when it starts to kind of go downhill and he kind of has a certain caliber opposition, like your Andre Fili one, he was getting like absolutely smoked in that one there before, poked him in the eye, was really kind of taking a beating, was never really in that fight in my opinion. But this is a pretty quick turnaround, like 6 weeks here, but that was a pretty low caliber opposition against Tucker Lutz, and he kind of used all that experience that he has coming out there, really hurting him on the feet, then jumping on the neck and getting the submission there. And then in this one, Julian Erosa, that's a beauty. Like he's not really known for getting stoppages, Alex Caceres, but he can do it. Showed there that he's got a little bit of pop in his hands, but Julian Erosa has been knocked out a few times before. And then he took the Elliott to Sadiq Yusuf when he was kind of making that run. He had many wins there against kind of lower kind of caliber guys outside your top 25, your Kevin Crooms and your Austin Springers and such. So how he wins this fight for me, fights at distance, uses range and tries and elongates the fight. Avoid getting put into kind of shady situations where he might get his back taken, get his neck jumped on, pushed against the fence. For me, I'm fighting at distance, trying to keep him at bay. But for me, like I say, if you were to say, right, bet this fight and you had 100 quid to throw in it, I'm throwing in the dog. I think he's live with just how he fights. He comes forward and looks to put it on you. So for me, I'm going to pick Bruce Leroy. I think that he, like I say, elongates the fight, lands more, kind of frustrates Daniel Pineda, potentially might get a finish in that third round, more likely a decision, but I've got Alex Caceres to kind of jump back in the win column there and add to his fight that he won beforehand. Main event, this is another one that's been very, very much on my mind for the last week. I think it's a very close fight. I've had people say this guy doesn't deserve, like, you're number 4 against number 7. I don't know what the UFC rankings is, this topology, but they're saying this guy's getting too big a jump up. This is the perfect jump up, from my opinion. Now, his UFC opponent is not good at all. Malcolm Gordon, Jalgas, always a kind of tough out. He's a tough guy to face. Francisco Figueiredo and Alexandre Costa. I don't think he looked that great until the finish. But there is things I like with this guy. I've known about this guy for quite a long time. When he is fights out of London initially, now in Vegas. But he came from the London Shoot Fighters, where I asked a few people in the know where he wouldn't really train as hard as he could, to say the least. They always thought he was a talented guy, but never really pushed himself. And they thought he should have been in the UFC probably a little bit sooner than what he was. But he never fought the kind of caliber opposition. Then he went to Brave, lost to Jose Shorty Torres. And like I say, since he's come into the UFC, I've kind of watched him from probably 4 years out. Ryan Carter's the guy I'm familiar with. And then, like I say, these ones here. So this is a step up to kind of what he was facing. Jose Torres, I think, is above these guys when he's in his pomp. And he lost that one there. But he's beat who's been put in front of him. And you can't really take that away from him. There is things I really like about him. I think he's got a beautiful jab. I think that he's got a really solid ground game. He's got a submission game that I really like. A great uppercut, which Kai Kara-France maybe has to be a little bit kind of careful with, because he does throw with kind of violent intent to really hurt you with it. And I do think there are spots where he could get his grappling going here, maybe find a way at the back. And that's in certain parts of Kai Kara-France's career. He's been caught in certain points and nearly been submitted, like the Bontarin fight. That fight looked precarious when he got his back taken. Fought through it, and then got up and then put the guy out with a couple of big shots. Some of the things I was seeing with like the UFC opponents that he's had here, a lot of guys were throwing singular shots where someone like Kai Kara-France, he is a fairly decent combination striker, can go down low with low kicks, come back up there with body shots, and just accumulate different strikes to the bean up the top there. And I've seen people like social media, so that I'm glad I kind of stepped back from that since having kids. Like they're ribbing him for this fight here and getting like knocked out to the body. I'm like, that's against the UFC champion, and I've asked a fighter to kind of give me a little semi-punch one time to kind of feel what a liver punch was like, and that wasn't very nice. I'll not name the fighter, but that wasn't even half probably power, and I was dead after that. So to take a full one to the body there and being that, I wouldn't like that. Over 5 rounds, which is interesting here. Interesting to see what Albazi is over a 5-round fight, and I think Kai Kara can definitely go a hard 25. There's no doubt about it, he's fought the far higher caliber opposition with wins over, Bontarin, Cody Garbrandt, Askarov there, where I thought his takedown defense looked unbelievable. I think there was 14 attempts. He stuffed like 80% of them, at 85%, but taken down a couple of times. So he's got that in his bag there, that if he can keep this fight standing, to me, I think he has the slight advantage on the feet just with his combination strike and he's mixing with his kicks. But there's a lot to like on the Albazi side, in all honesty. But I think if Amir can get him down, get some positions where he could possibly get the back, I think he has got an opportunity for submissions. For me, it's a very close fight. I am leaning on the Kai Kara-France side, but I'm not going to be betting it like a pick 'em odds. I'm going to sit back and enjoy this. But as a pick, I'm going to pick Kai Kara-France for the win there. But yeah, really good fight card, I must admit. So, guys, appreciate the couple of you that are in here with me. I'll be back next time out for next week's card, which I believe is the pay-per-view. So until then, all the very, very best. Thank you to the chat. I see you guys there. But until then, all the very, very best. Take care and speak to you.